Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome aboard for another episode of What You Can't See, the Dark Matters podcast for the GWW Radio Network. Here, as always meaning 2 episodes, I have with me my faithful co-host, Mr. Dave Pecci. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing good. This is 4 episodes, though, right? We're covering, or?
Yeah, 3. Yes, so 2 episodes of this podcast, 3 episodes that we're talking about tonight.
Yeah.
So, and Dave, you're relatively fresh from San Diego Comic-Con, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Well, actually, I was in the area, but I didn't go to the Comic-Con. I went to Nerd HQ and the song party. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So I can't remember. Were any of our guys who were at the con able to get into the Dark Matter panel?
I don't think any of them went. No.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, not the actual one, or the one that was outside at Camp Carnival.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh well, I'm sure we'll get in on it next time. So tonight we're going to be talking about episodes 3, 4, and 5 because we covered episodes 1 and 2 in the first episode. So I'll start, Dave, by just throwing it to you. I mean, I felt like episodes 1 and 2 were a very strong opening for this season. How are you feeling overall about the strength of the show and kind of where it's headed after these?
So I thought episode 3. I still think it's good. Like, every episode is definitely worthwhile to watch. I felt with episode 3 that they didn't really add much. So that was the one where they lost their memory. Or I wouldn't say lost their memory, actually regained their memory.
Right.
They lost their current memories.
Right.
So
we should say, I always forget to say this when the show opens. So this is a review show.
Yeah.
We are doing spoilers. So we're having this discussion based on the assumption that you've watched episodes 3, 4, and 5. So if you haven't, please go away and come back at your earliest convenience after you've watched that 5th episode and join in on the conversation. So I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, the only thing that I felt that they added on to that one was the fact that we know that they can get their memories back, and number 2, that I forget the guy's name, but the one that was the prison guy was a spy.
Yeah.
And I kind of figured that from the get-go.
Right, Air-X.
Yeah.
So yeah, and just to fill in the rest of that recap. So yeah, so this episode, something happens. I think there was a malfunction on the ship, and what we find out is that the crew's memories are not actually lost. They're not actually wiped, but they're blocked.
Yeah.
So in whatever transpired originally, like I said, their memories are there. They're just blocked, and what happened? I think it was a neural link malfunction, but what happened was a backup routine on the Raza was kicked in that caused backup memories that 2 had made before they went into stasis at the beginning of season 1, and those backup copies of those memories were restored. So what we experienced was basically an episode with not 2, 3, and 4, but rather Portia Lynn, Ryo Ishida, and I cannot remember 3's name right now. Marcus Boone.
Yeah.
So and I'm trying to keep this all straight. So was it? I think it's episode 4 that we actually found out that he. I mean, maybe there was a small drop.
Right.
But episode.
Was it 4? Yeah, I think it was 4. Yeah, 4 was more of his backstory.
Right. I was saying with 4 is where we really find out Air-X is. I think we get an indicator of it at the end of episode 3, but it's 4 that it's really revealed that he's the Italian lady. I can't remember what her name is. But yeah, 3, I was actually kind of down on 3. I didn't lose confidence in the show. But I guess what bugged me, and I should also add, so what happens in this episode is they get those memories back, but what they do concurrently, they lose the memories of everything that had transpired between the time they woke up with their memories blocked and until that point where they regained consciousness and had their old memories restored.
Yeah.
So in some ways, their old memories were restored, but their new memories were blocked. So they didn't recognize 5. They didn't regard her as a friend and an ally. Everybody that was on the Roz at that point was under suspicion.
They remembered her. They just remembered her as the stowaway.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wasn't crazy about episode 3, mainly because, and the other conflict was, so when the android returned to the Raza, she found out that she had been damaged while she was being scanned back on Hyperion, the prison planet, and was not able to establish a neural link with the ship. So she put herself into some type of suspension and in order to repair herself. And in the meantime, Portia determined that she was able to establish a neural link with the Raza. And so part of the conflict during this episode was that she was becoming addicted to the neural link with the ship. So it wasn't only about getting her memories restored, but it was also about getting her to back off and disengage the neural link with the ship. So one of the reasons the episode didn't work as well for me, it was like, because that part of the plot, the whole thing about her becoming, too immersed in this connection with the ship, I was kind of like, I don't care about this conflict. Like, I don't care what happens to the psyche of Portia Lynn. Like, the character that I'm in love with is 2, right? So it was just kind of weird to have that additional subplot going on. But, overall, when the thing wrapped up, I guess my feeling was like, I hope that doesn't become like the going back in time trope like you had on Star Trek, right? So two big Star Trek tropes are time travel and destroying the Enterprise, right? Like, so I just hope this.
I don't think they're gonna go that way. I hope not.
Right. I just don't want to. I mean, they did it once. That's fine. That's cool. Like, I don't need to see that plot again. As far as them like losing their memories and the old ones being restored, because I feel like it takes away the principal. It takes away the principal hook of the show. The principal hook of the show to me is
the memories were wiped, right?
Right, and that because their memories are wiped, that they seize that as an opportunity to become people who are inherently different than they were before. Even though they don't remember who they were before, they just know that they weren't good.
Right.
Which is interesting philosophically, right? Because one of the big principles of philosophy and understanding the human psyche is the notion of, are you predestined to, are all humans evil, right? And it's only through upbringing and cultural exposure that we become good, right? What is it called? Preordained sin or predetermined sin or whatever,
right?
The religious concept, or is it that all people are preordained to be good, and we only become evil through exposure to, we're all born innocent, right? And we just become predisposed to evil when we're exposed to it. So you would think, that these people were bad before and that they were predestined to be bad. So it's just an interesting hook that they're choosing to be something different than they were before. So please don't take that away from me.
I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm done talking about the episode because there wasn't much to it.
Right. Yeah. Right. All right. So let's go on to episode
4. Which 4 was was sad because you got to see, you know, Marcus's past. And I mean, I hate to say it, but the stuff that happened with the robot, like, really, like, kind of overshadowed what was going on with Marcus's story, because you're like, holy shit, like, there's like robot love, like, I haven't seen this in a while. Like, there's a whole like group of like robots with emotions. Like, you know, it was so good, that episode.
It was. I will say it did bug me that that they went against my prediction, and it did wind up being like a dumb emotion chip kind of thing, just like Data on Star Trek.
Right.
So I was hoping it would be. Well, it's interesting,
but
right?
Don't forget the one thing that was like big at the very end that we're gonna hear more about was that she was programmed to be flawed, to have. She was meant to have these emotions. So that moves into the question, like, how did she get onto the Raza? Who made her have these? You know, what is her true purpose? You know?
Right. Well, and it's also interesting to see if those, without getting into episode 5, to see if she's able to develop emotions on her own without that chip.
Right.
So there were some other interesting things in episode 4. So to kind of go through a bit of a summary, you know, so we had, you know, the crew shows up at a space station to restock. Boone and Arax go ashore and go to a bar. Boone runs into his old crew, who were the group of people that he was running with when he got left on the mining colony planet, and you know, had the relationship with Sarah. That crew had seen him gunned down and seen him fall and thought he was dead, and so left him there. Like you mentioned, then the android then runs into what turns out to be another android who leads her to an enclave of androids who are passing for human, who are able to subdue the tattoo marks that are characteristically on an android's neck, and appear to be fully functioning from an emotional aspect, human beings. You also have you know, in the restocking and resupplying. So near the end of the episode, you also have the Doctor, who I think that actor is. I don't know if you remember the season 1 episode, the final job of that season, where they go and grab the antimatter weapon of mass destruction from the Mike research station. There are 2 characters who are in the crew that the Raza is forced to partner with. The sister, I can't remember the actress's first name, but her last name is Sypos, and she also played the daughter of Vandal Savage on Legends of Tomorrow. I think the Doctor is her brother. The actor is the brother of her.
Okay.
Yeah, their last names are Sypos. But at any rate, so we also have, once they are resupplied and restocked with medical supplies, they also then bring 6 out of stasis.
Okay,
so
I can't remember if that was 4 or 5. If that happened in 5 or if that was in 4. But yeah, you're right. I think that was 4.
Right. And so we get a little bit of the start of, you know, a journey that we're going to see that I think is a bit long, will be a bit long, is repairing of the relationship, primarily between 6 and 5.
Right. The other thing that was good was they used that kind of to introduce the medics kind of story now, which I was really into that, because, like, okay, like, you find out he's kind of a drug user, you know, he gets that thing and he injects it into himself to get like a high. And then later on you find out that it might have, because then he has these flashbacks of some sort of surgery, and I started to guess, like, well, maybe he had like a very important surgery, maybe it went wrong, and maybe he's dealing with some sort of trauma now, and through that trauma, he's using drugs. So
Right.
I like the medic. I think he's going to be great. I also like the other new lady that they added, which that gets into more. What's her name again?
Nyx.
Nyx, yeah, Nyx.
Yeah.
So I'll talk more about her when we start talking about episode 5. Yeah.
Right. But so I thought episode 4 was more in the vein of the strength of the season premiere in episode 2.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily feel it was as good as either of those, but was overall better than episode 3.
Right.
I think one of the most interesting things from episode 4 was that the big one of the big reveals is that so in season 1 when 5 entered the dream world, right, because she had all of their memories, we were exposed to what was apparently the childhood of one of the Raza crew members, and I think we all pretty much universally thought and assumed that because at that point we knew that one. I think we knew at least that one had grown up differently than the rest of them, and I think, and that childhood character was referred to by his parents as Titch, and I think we thought that memory was from one's childhood, that he had been loved by his parents and grown up in a kind of a more nurturing environment. It turns out in episode 4 we find out that was actually 3's childhood.
Yeah.
So it's a huge swerve because we find out that at least for part of 3's life, for part of his childhood, he was very happy.
Yeah.
And of course, it's revealed in episode 4 that what really happened was that one of the farmhands who worked for his parents wound up murdering them. And then when they found 3 hiding in a closet, he didn't have the heart to kill him, so he took him and kind of raised him as his own.
See, now I'm not sure if that was the line he told me, or if it was, or if the truth was that his parents were like, it was kind of like the son, that they kidnapped the son, and they made the dad do dirty work. So I'm kind of wondering, maybe he was the farmhand, or maybe he wasn't a farmhand, and the parents, were. Extortion, there's extortion going on, and the parents didn't follow through, and so they got killed.
Yeah, except at the end of the episode, he kind of admitted his whole culpability in the whole thing. His first story was a line that and what did he say? That like he said two guys from a bar in town accused his father of cheating and came home and killed the parents, while the farmhand was in town drinking himself and didn't get back in time. But later in the episode, before 3 kills him, he outs himself and says, "Yeah, I got into a fight with your father, and I killed him and your mom." So I just kind of accepted that as a truth.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can't really, and through all that we didn't really talk about. And so the android goes to the space station, finds this coven of androids, and is handed an enhanced program on a chip that is the emotion upgrade for androids. So that's interesting, just in that it opens up another vein of potential future stories, right? That now it's really feasible that anybody that they run into could be an android.
Yeah. I don't want to think too much about that.
Right. Yeah. That'll have us kind of looking around. I mean, we're already looking like underneath every bed, right, for a potential conspiracy every time they run into somebody. Is it interesting to you that we have yet to see? I forget what his name was on Stargate, but that we have yet to see the guy who used to be on Stargate who in season 1 was kind of like their handler.
That's true. I do think that's interesting that they haven't tried to contact him again. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just have to see if he shows up again and what his deal will be. And then also in episode 4, this is where we see directly Eric's having conversations with the Italian woman who we also find out that episode is working for Mike, and is attempting to get their hands on the key that Five swiped off of a guy in season 1. This to me is the biggest MacGuffin of the show, right? There's this key which the android has analyzed as being a thing that can be used to open up a passageway between different dimensions. And I'm like, how is that not like the huge story, right? Because even since season 1, I've been assuming that they'll eventually use that key to start like pulling jobs, and that always being their escape route, and that people will always be after them.
We're gonna go escape into Dimension X, and then we'll jump back to our dimension.
Right. Yeah, that'll be this door, right, that they walk through and like come out on the other side, like on the other side of the galaxy or something.
Yeah.
Kind of like the whole. Man, I'm forgetting all these terms tonight. What is the travel method where they basically take your memories and transmit them to a clone, like on the other side of the galaxy?
Oh, I forget what that's called. Yeah.
Yeah. So at any rate, and then also in episode 3, Five uses the technology from episode 1 that allowed her to enter people's memories. That was kind of how she started fighting Portia Linoff for control of the ship.
Yeah.
But another thing that she did is she used it to enter Portia's memory and take her to what was supposedly her most fearful memory. And in that, we saw in the background a big spire structure that kind of stretched into the sky, and that view, that background, again, is apparently the place that is a view from an alley where theoretically the most horrific thing that Portia Lynn ever experienced happened.
Which I think that has to be Earth, because so far we haven't heard a lot about Earth yet. But starting, I think season 4, right, is the first time we actually hear about Earth, right? And right. So I think, Terra 1, right? So I think that'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting if they go back there. So in episode 4, 2 and Nix go aboard the space station, and 5 has drawn a picture of that spire from her memory. And they go to, I can't remember one of these places, but they go to one of these places where they transport you into a clone and ask the coordinator there or whatever if she knows where that spire is, just figuring that she's familiar with all these, skylines and landscapes from all over the galaxy. And she comes back and informs them that, that spire is actually on, I think what they refer to as Terra Prime, which is Earth. So yeah, it'll be interesting if they go back there, because, right, I mean, their big thing is that they're constantly being hunted and they're outlaws. So how do you go back to the home world, right, where if you're going to be recognized at all, you're definitely going to be recognized there. So
yeah, but at the other hand, it's going to be awesome because we're going to hear like more backstories about each of the characters,
Right, and in fact, it may not be that long before they head there.
I'm sure it's coming up. Yeah,
because they've been tipped off that they need to go hunt down one person who I have to believe is on Earth, and that is the CEO of the company that Derek Moss inherited. And of course, at this point, we're still, we still have the murder of one at the hands of Jace Corso to be resolved, and that is a good point to segue to episode 5.
Episode 5, yeah.
So let me first off say, pretty freaking amazing episode.
Yeah.
Right. Because what you get is, and I hate that it's this tropish thing of the emotion ship, right? But I do appreciate how there's no preamble, right? We don't have 30 minutes of scenes of the android struggling through all types of angst over should she use the chip or not, right? The opportunity comes up for her to use it. She says she recommends that she use it, and the next scene we see her pop up, and it's this, and it's not a slow transformation. She pops the chip in, and she's immediately humanized, right? A completely different. It's almost like there's a 10th member of the crew, right? So, or 9th member at this point, since Arax is off the ship. So what were your feelings on episode 5?
Definitely, I liked seeing the robot part again. How she's, she's got spunk. The medic was like, "Whoa, look how you're dressed now," and there's all of this. And then it's kind of sad at the end of the episode, there's a price to it. Now she's worrying if she's going to be, reckless, because she can't fully, do her job because she's dealing with emotions at the same time. I don't think she's going to leave the crew. I think it'll be there'll be an eventual bonding experience where everybody talks there, and you'll be like, you know what, we like you as you are. Don't worry if you kind of screw up. I think we're going to have that kind of talk coming up by the crew. I don't think they're going to feel like, nah, we need you, anyways.
Right.
I think maybe she'll be more useful in other ways now. Maybe she won't be, because we know Portia can also, run the ship, to some degree well. But what they really need is they kind of need somebody that can be a spy every once in a while, and the robot's really good at that.
Yeah, I mean, my prediction now, even though my last prediction was woefully inaccurate with regards to the android, my prediction will be that, like you said, she's going to get to a decision point where she has to choose to either be a fully real. It's the Pinocchio story, right?
Yeah.
She's going to have to choose to become a real boy, or stick with being an android out of necessity. And like you mentioned, the plot line right now is going that when she is a human. It's possible for her to make errors, while she's neurally linked to the ship. What we saw in episode 5 was there were some variables she didn't compensate for. There's a point where a Galactic Authority cruiser shows up, and so she elects to land the ship on the planet, which we haven't seen before. And just TV history, in Star Trek Voyager, right? The reason you so rarely saw the ship land on a planet, although we knew Voyager has that capability, is because those shots and those effects were the most expensive thing in the budget for the show. So they used it very rarely, and I suspect there's some similarities to production costs today. But they land the ship, they blow a capacitor, and the reason is because it's something that the android didn't compensate for on descent, and we get the Mirage version of the android, right? The her non-corporeal conscience kind of program show up and tell her that, right? That she knows that they wouldn't have blown that capacitor if she hadn't been using the emotion chip, and she could have run all the calculations that she needed to run. So yeah, I mean that could be one way it goes. What I hope the way it doesn't go, I hope they don't make it tragic. I hope because the other scenario they could run with is that she decides to permanently give up the emotion chip, because the crew needs her as the android, not as you know, I guess I'll call that Persona 7, right? That's where she's like a fully realized member of the crew. So let's talk a little before we talk about more about episode 5. It's through the whole length of the season to this point. In episode 5, it's clear that there's romantic tension, right, between various members of the crew, and I hope the show doesn't become like Glee, where by like the 3rd season, like everybody's dated everyone else. Right?
Well, okay. As it currently stands, I think 1 and 2, right? Portia? Did I get that right? Yeah.
They were a thing in season 1.
Right. I totally thought that 1 and 2, were a thing, but now that 1's dead, that one's over. But now I think we're starting to see that there's a thing between Marcus and Nyx maybe going on.
Right.
That, or they, or maybe they're going to be like really close friends. I don't know. If anything, I see them too.
Right. Yeah, it's a little weird because, Jodelle Furland, who plays 5, is not 16, right? She's like 24. So maybe she's not that old, but she's definitely, I think she's in her 20s. So, and then I can't get a fix on how old the Doctor is supposed to be.
Oh gosh, no, I don't see that happening at all. That relationship.
So, well, I guess the thing is, it's tough for. So, it's hard for me to tell how far apart in age the Doctor and number 5 are supposed to be.
Right.
It's hard for me to tell. Yeah, it's hard for me to tell how old he's supposed to be and whether or not he lines up with 2. Or with 2 or Nyx, but like you mentioned, they're definitely exploring the notion of a thing between Nyx and 3 right now. So talking about Nyx, in episode 5, there's a point where as they're chasing Jace Corso,
there's something interesting about it, right?
Right. And I'm still on the theory that she is another
robot, maybe.
I'll label them super androids, right? That she's another super android, but 2.
No. Oh boy! And then we find out 3's in love with the robot.
Right.
I mean, it's possible she could be.
Yeah, but it's weird because like she has remarkable capabilities that make me think of 2, but hers are portrayed as different specifically, right?
Right. Hers are kind of like, it's kind of like almost she can see in the future, like I know what's coming, so we need to do this, kind of like. So we're like, how did she learn all these super like spider senses abilities?
Now that's an interesting take. I've been totally focused that what it is that she's like a super android, like she's another prototype, like 2, and that where we're going to find that out is when Wesley Crusher shows back up, right? But I hadn't considered, and I think you're onto something. I hadn't considered the notion that maybe she's a psychic of some type. Maybe
that was my guess, is that she's got some sort of like alien psychic ability.
Right. Or maybe because they do this a lot in sci-fi shows, a lot. Like it's many shows, produced by the Sci-Fi Network have this notion of beings that are part of some like sect or race that specifically have psionic capabilities. So it wouldn't surprise me that what it winds up being is that she's like the member of some race or society, or maybe even like a like they had. So in what was it? So in the Next Generation, they had this notion of Section 8, which were like these black operatives who had like psychic capabilities, So it wouldn't surprise me if it were something like that. So who, of the, so it's almost disappointing that Arex is off the ship already, because we thought that we were getting this introduction of 3 new characters. But regardless of that, of the 3 characters who have been added to the cast so far, who's your favorite between Devin and Nyx and Arex?
I'm really glad Arex is gone. I just hated him from the start. It's really tough between Devin the medic and Nyx. I don't know, man. Jeez. I would have to say I really want to know more about Devin right now because of the whole drug addiction thing. Maybe because that personally, like, I know friends that struggle with drugs, and I was also a sociology major, so maybe that like makes me like want to know like what is the drug he's taking, what happened to him as a medic, what got him into prison. He seems like he's a good guy, but he's just the wrong thing happened at the wrong time, maybe.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a really bold and cool choice, right? Because it's Nyx that they kind of shove in your face, right? Like she wears the attractive outfits. There's a little bit of sexual tension, like very, very, very frequently when she's on the screen. I mean,
Yeah.
Even between her and 2, right? They've played with that notion a couple times. So yeah, I can definitely.
That I want to throw out, say this is random about Devin, is the first time I saw him though, I was worrying like, oh God, he's a doctor, he's gonna poison the crew or something like that. But I backed off, and I think he's a good guy now. Anyways.
Yeah, and and his is the more curious scenario, right? Because it's when you stop and think about it, which I don't think you're naturally inclined to a lot, but you're like, hold on a second. How does a doctor, I mean, because in those flashbacks, he was clearly like a surgeon, right? So he's not a family physician, right? I mean, he's a high-end doctor.
Yeah.
What crime does a doctor commit that winds him up in a maximum security prison?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Other stuff that happened in episode 5 that I think make it, in my mind, one of the best episodes of this season. I think the more I talk about it, I think I start to like it more and more. But we have we talked before about one of the problems in this show is that every week it's a different villain, right? So there's no notion of a big bad, and there's not really a notion of a villainous recurring character. But we may have found it. I think one of the greatest character setups in the show so far has been there's the introduction of a new police officer in the Galactic Alliance, a chief inspector. I think it's Chief Inspector Kirkin, who is a lot very much like if you've ever seen Les Mis. He is very much like the inspector in Les Mis. And as I mentioned, I wonder if that's like a deliberate caricature. So, the inspector in Les Mis, his problem is he's married to the ideal of the office in which he's supposed to serve, which will sometimes cause him to be more about going by the book, more about doing things right than doing the right thing, right?
Yeah.
And in Les Mis, he becomes a tragic character because he hits a point where he cannot arbitrate releasing the protagonist in Les Mis and letting him go about his way and remaining loyal to the duty of his office. So he kills himself. It's the robot. It's the human equivalent of a robot or a software program short circuiting, right? Because it hits a logic node that it can't resolve, and that character is introduced in this episode, and about in the later half of the episode, is established as a key foil to 4. And I think the notion of these 2 men who are bound by honor. But wind up approaching it differently. 4 decides that that his honor is a thing that is about him. It's not about how other people see him. And that flies in direct opposition to Kirkin, who he does things because what's important is how people perceive him as an honorable person, not how he judges himself. And it's a tense rivalry. It may eventually go to violence, but right now it's a war of words and ideologies. And I suspect that we're going to see that character again, and I think that's an awesome rivalry between he.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like that, and the actor did a really good job with it as well. So we got a lot of good stuff in episode 5, right? Yeah, go ahead.
A lot. Oh, I was going to say, like, besides seeing the android, go full on as a human, I want to say the second biggest part of the episode, I think, was seeing Nyx, and then also the biggest thing was Portia killing, like, Jason Crusoe. And honestly, like, people are wondering, like, should she have done it or not? And in my situation, hell yeah, that guy is double trouble boiled rubble. Like, you let him go, he's gonna rat you out. Like, seriously, like, I wouldn't take a chance with him.
Yeah, and it's another kind of very unusual bit of scripting, right, in a television show, because most shows wouldn't have done that. Most shows would have let that linger, like, for who knows how long. But again, the show branches in different directions, and it shows the cold, in some ways, the cold-bloodedness of 2, but it also shows her resolution to do what needs to be done, right? And and what we're talking about in the show is
it solidifies her as a leader too.
Right, exactly. Right. Often doing the horrible things that other people may not be willing to do. So there's a point, where they've chased Jason Corso down into the tunnels. The tunnel collapses. She has him digging his way out. And as he, removes the rock that shows them daylight, he starts this argument about why she needs to keep him alive. And basically she hits a point where she's like, F that, and shoots him square in the head. And you're just, I think my jaw dropped almost as much as it did when he killed one, right? Just like,
yeah.
I'm like, I can't believe that they.
And also, do you remember what she said too? Which was pretty damn awesome. She's like, you might not have been the one that was behind the killing, but you still pulled the damn gun.
Right. You still pulled the trigger, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
So now what we clearly have is we have a setup where they're clearly going to go after the CEO. I've seen the synopsis for the next episode. Not the synopsis, but just the sound bite, right? Is that the next episode is going to be about them doing a mission for Nyx. And so that's interesting because, I mentioned in our first episode that it would be interesting if they pulled kind of making this season kind of like the Thunderbolt setup in Marvel, where, like I mentioned, it was General Thunderbolt Ross as the Red Hulk, and then he had, Punisher, Elektra, Venom, Deadpool, and the whole setup was in Ghost Rider was that, okay, we'll all do a mission for a member of the team, but then every other mission, you guys are doing a mission for me. And that's kind of what they're doing now, right? Where the episode wasn't quite a mission for Arax, but it was, Arax's spin was part of the story. Now they've done a mission for the crew of the Raza, right, by going after the guy who killed one. Now the next episode is going to be them doing something on behalf of Nyx. So my guess is we'll get that episode for Nyx. We'll get the next episode will be about a problem for the Raza crew, for the original crew. And then in the third episode, from this one, we'll get Devin. Yeah.
Yep. It's going to be awesome.
It is. It's doing. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, when me and Casey were trying to see if that we could get an interview with Dark Matter at San Diego Comic-Con, the press lady did say that we would try to follow up and maybe try to get something in the future. So I don't remember if we told you that or not, but I wanted to remember to tell you.
Yeah, I saw that. We should definitely try and follow up on that when we have the time. Yeah, so it's I guess in some ways I'm kind of glad episode 3 was what it was, right? Because and again, unfortunately I haven't been able to keep up with writing reviews because of this train wreck of a move, but I struggled very much so in assigning scores for episodes 1 and 2 in my reviews, and I worried very intently that that I was scoring myself into a corner, right? Because I gave episode 1 a 9.0. As I sat down to watch episode 2, I was like, man, I really didn't know what to think. I was just like, the episode ended, and I'm like, man, this episode was almost as good as the first one. What do I do now? And I wound up giving that one an 8.5. Heading into episode 3, I was like,
you gotta give it lower. I would.
Yeah, and I hate, I mean, this is something we all struggle with as writers, right? I hate having like a contrived, like what I struggled with episode 1 was after I watched it, I was like, part of me said I should give this a lower score, just to give the season time to be better, right? But when it came time to actually enter it, I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, if the season opener was a really strong episode, I'm going to rate it based on that episode. I'm not going to score it based on the remainder of the reviews that I might have to do. So, but going into episode 3, I was kind of like, man, I hope there's something that differentiates this episode from the first 2, because it'll kind of be boring writing reviews if they're just all like the same score, right? So in some ways, I'm kind of glad episode 3 was kind of clearly not as good as the first 2.
Right, because you don't want all of them to be like really high scores or something.
Right. Now, I didn't assign a score to episode 4. I would probably have given episode 4 an 8 or an 8.5, and episode 5 would probably be back up at
I totally agree.
At a 9.0. Because episode 5 just built up to this thing that we were all waiting to see, right? What happens when the android becomes something starkly different than what she's been. So I guess my point is that I'm now curious to see from a quality aspect like how the season's going to go, right? Is it just going to be consistently strong throughout, or are we going to expect to see one of these episodes where there's like a market dip? I really felt like episode 3, from a writing standpoint, I feel like episode 3 was filler. Like, I feel like they were just like,
yeah, totally.
Look, we've got so many writers on staff. You two go like figure out this filler episode so we can go write like the rest of like the big arcs or something for the season.
The one thing that I didn't like about episode 4 and 5-ish was that I felt they brought back 5 as the Galactic Authority guy, right?
6.
Okay, 6. Yeah. 5 is the girl, right? My thing is, I kind of was hoping they would wait on bringing him back a little bit longer, because now. But I mean, on the one hand, it allowed us to dive into Devin more as a medic earlier on, whereas we didn't get to see. Yeah, but still, I just wish there was a little bit more time.
Yeah, and I'll have to. I mean, we talked about like those 3 different scenarios of timelines within which they can bring him back. I don't remember which ones of those I said I would prefer. I think I did. I think I said I'm glad that they've dealt with. I'm glad they dealt with Sarah the way they did, and maybe what I said was I was hoping they would bring 6 back early, because it would just feel too gimmicky to like to go for like 8-9 episodes with the notion that they're just dragging around these bodies in stasis in the cargo hold, right? But yeah, I wasn't surprised. I guess I felt like it was. I guess I felt like it was unlikely that they would stretch it beyond this season, right? That they were either going to bring him back fast and resolve it right away, because then we would have to start asking, like, dude, why do they keep stopping at all these space stations and not getting freaking medical supplies, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I felt like they were going to either bring him back immediately or they would bring him back for the season finale, and that it wouldn't really be some weird thing like in between or really far out beyond that. So I guess, that's what they did. They pretty much took one episode, right, to get supplies and then patch him up and bring him back out of stasis.
Yeah.
Which I think is good, because I think one of the most interesting character dynamics to watch is that dynamic between 6 and 5.
Right.
So we've covered all 3 episodes, man. Let's talk a little bit about what do you I mean, you've mentioned that you want to see Devin's story unfold. Are there other things that you want to see, and how concerned are you that the notion that they brought 3 new characters on and they've already jettisoned 1? How concerned are you that that's going to be the pattern, right? That even though they've
kill one,
even though they've introduced, well, not kill them, but just like
maybe separate eventually.
Yeah, have these off ramps like every 3 episodes where they brought these 3 people on, but they're just kind of like progressively getting rid of them at different junctures throughout the season.
No, I totally think there's going to be a solid crew. I mean, for one thing, I think, I forget, 4, I think Ishida, right? I think he's going to, I think he's going to eventually leave and, somehow restore honor, maybe he'll become the new leader or something, If anything, I could see him. I definitely see Portia Lynn staying. I see 5 staying. 6, I see him maybe eventually going back to the Galactic Authority and maybe like reforming it or something like that. Or going like undercover and doing like his own work, But I think 5 and Portia Lynn, I don't see them leaving. I don't see the android leaving. I don't see Marcus Boone leaving. And I think if Nyx, becomes, I think Nyx will maybe stay around, and I think the medic, because they need a medic. I mean, so those are my predictions, kind of about what I see for the characters coming up. And the other thing, don't forget, we should talk about is the whole thing why they want that the portal key was that there's this war coming up.
Right. Yeah, and I'm so I guess big arcs or big junctures that could like be like the big thrust of the season. So I think they do, like you mentioned, I think they do travel back to Earth. I think that's this season. I think that episode is the gateway to the notion of the war.
Yeah.
That episode, that mission winds up being the thing that they do to avert the war. But I feel like them going back to Earth is going to wind up, being us seeing like lots of the recurring guest members, right? Like Terry Higginson, and the guy who plays that captain of the Mike ship. I feel like they go back to Earth, and that's a big kerfuffle, right? Maybe even that's the season finale arc. So it's interesting. So you think if anybody's going to leave the crew, it'll be 6 this season?
This season, yeah, I think it definitely would be 6 first.
Okay. So I'm a little, I won't say concerned, but I feel like I can't remember what show it is, but I know that there's some show where, like, well, I guess Walking Dead, right? To a certain extent, you kind of always live in this fear that at any point in any episode they're going to off a character, right? You just don't know where it's going to come from, and I feel like there's a lot of people my prediction on 4 is, I'm going to say this a bit because it's maybe what I want. I think season 3 is all about him regaining the throne.
Yeah.
I think they hold.
Well, maybe. So here's what I think. Like, I don't know if we're gonna get. I think Earth is coming up. I don't know if it's gonna be this season or if it's gonna be kind of close to the end of the season. But I think season 3 is gonna be, it's gonna be about him regaining the throne, or it's gonna be about the war.
Right, or maybe both, because as they mentioned that notion of a war, I could definitely see how it's a war that it involves Ashita and the throne
give me a moment.
and their empire. Yeah.
All right, I'm back. You there?
Yeah, sorry, I just got a couple alerts on my phone while you were gone, so I was trying to mute it. So, but yeah, the notion of the war and his campaign to regain his throne could definitely be intermingled plot lines, right? That it could be, because Inspector Kirkin mentions in episode 5 that his thing is that he's made arrangements so that once 4 is captured, he does not have to be extradited back to the Ashita clan, right? That he can be tried under Galactic Authority rule. So, I guess I'm thinking or partially hoping that that they take all of season 3 and make it one big arc, and it's all about him regaining the throne, and or maybe the war. I don't think there's a chance of 5 leaving, because I think in a lot of ways that the show is about there's lots of character dynamics, but I feel like the core of the show is about the relationship between 2 and 5, to a certain extent. I'm with you that 6 could wind up leaving or being killed at some point. I think in some ways he's still a bit suicidal. Just not being able to process all the bad things that he's done in the name of like upholding the law. I think Nix and Devin are just. I think they're in the target zone to be kind of plotted off of the show, right? That there are deliberate arcs that are being written that will wind up having them leave. Now, I guess one way I see them staying, as far as other characters making space for them, is in a lot of ways, Devin kind of spiritually channels elements of 1's character, and elements of 6. Right, that he's the peacekeeper, he's the philosopher, that he's the philosopher. So yeah, if 6 exits the series permanently, I feel like I can see Devin staying on. Nix,
I think maybe more than she, I think might stay. I mean, might stay or might go, because the only reason I could see her staying if there's some romantic tie that happens. If not, yeah.
So I can see the plot line for her and her becoming a permanent member is that she stays on throughout the remainder of this season, and that basically what happens is you have the arc of Ashita gaining his throne. Once he regains the throne, he leaves the Raza, and Nix is kind of his 1-for-1 replacement, right? She kind of has the same level of fighting skill.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and what we've seen too. And I think this might be building up to something. We've now seen 2 characters from the ship, both of them women. And I don't know if that's deliberate or happenstance. Training with swords in Ryu's training room, right? So we've seen him fight Nix with swords, and we've seen the android utilize his room for sword training. So it'll, like I said, I could see Nick staying on board, him leaving once he regains his throne, and her being the one who then we see always in his training room using swords.
Yeah.
Another possibility that we might see is we might see a sword fight between Nyx and the android, since they're the two that we've seen training with reused swords in that room.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing is I don't want to drop the whole plot of Nyx could be a secret android, because we don't. The other thing too is, like, it makes me wonder, like, if oh gosh, what's his name again? The gel guy, hair.
Oh, Arax, the guy from jail. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if he was plotted in there, who's to say, one of the others weren't, like, a plot? Like, what if she was plotted there to capture Porcelain and bring her back? So.
Exactly. She might be the prototype that Wesley Crusher sent to infiltrate the group and bring her back. Absolutely. That's a possible theory. Absolutely. Yeah, so it's just going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Yeah, it's just a great, and this is what makes the show great, right? It's that Blacklist factor of, like, there's like 9 different fulcrum point. There's 9 different fulcrums in this, right? And a lever could be pulled on any one of them that would shoot the series off in a radically different direction than you were expecting it to go. And we're just constantly on the edge of our seats, wondering what that next thing is going to be.
Right. What lever are they going to pull? Exactly.
Right. No doubt, man. So any final thoughts for wrapping this episode up?
Such good episodes, man. That's all.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm of the mind that this is definitely, like, the best thing that I'm watching this summer. Is that the same for you?
Yes. Because right now I'm only, I'm finishing Flash, finishing Legends of Tomorrow, and I still got to finish Arrow. So unfortunately, Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow, like, I don't have any other way to, like, catch up on them until they're on Netflix.
Right.
Yeah. So Dark Matter I watch on cable, so it doesn't interfere with any of my parents' recordings, so that it works out well.
Right. Well, and I'm glad so I went into serious withdrawal, right, when Legends of Tomorrow, Flash and Arrow and Supergirl all wrapped up from their season finales, and I'm like, dude, I'm going to have, like, serious focus problems, like, between now and October when all the shows come back. Right now, and unfortunately, well, and I can't remember if I'm assuming that this is another 13. I want to say it's probably another show that I was watching. I guess it's probably another 13, maybe 14 episodes. And maybe 15. There may be more episodes that were commissioned for this season, but I will say, at least for right now, like, I'm not in any rush for those CW shows to come back. Like, I'm looking forward to them, but I'm fine as long as Dark Matter is going.
As long as something's going on in that sense, yeah.
Right.
The other thing that I'm kind of looking forward to coming back is the Fear of the Walking Dead. I am not looking, like, people hate me now. Over the Walking Dead, the main series line, I just thought, like, I just over it, the way that they've done some of the things, and Fear has just kind of, like, I think, gone back to the essence of that kind of sci-fi that I was looking for. Kind of like with Dark Matter, there's kind of like that, all of these what ifs, it makes you think. Kind of in The Walking Dead, there isn't, like, there's kind of this. There's the comics, and then there's kind of the TV show, and they're kind of, like, going hand in hand. And then you kind of already know, like, well, shit's always going down the hill, so, there's no surprise. I know something bad's going to happen,
Right. Right.
Well, with dark matter, or like the Fear of the Walking Dead, like you don't know what lever is going to be like pulled. You don't know, like with the robot, you wouldn't see that coming necessarily. Or with the Fear of the Walking Dead, like spoiler alert with here, but you didn't know like the whole group was going to split up at the end. It's those kind of like the shock factor, I guess. I love it. And
Yeah. The Walking Dead itself, and I'm still up on the show. It's still my favorite show of like all the genre stuff that's on right now. I still feel like it's the best written show.
Oh.
But admittedly, they've just done some things that desensitize you to to tragedy. I mean, I'm still very torn over the Glenn thing. Like at the end of the day, he's one of my favorite characters, so I'm glad he's back. However, it just makes you look at everything warily as far as like, okay, so when a character, I think that's the most desensitizing thing that they've done. Right now, I'm kind of like, now I kind of feel like the next time they kill off somebody major or that I liked, it's just going to be a shoulder shrug, right? Whereas, across are you caught up on The Walking Dead?
Yeah.
Okay, so across the other seasons, right? Like, Herschel getting killed and Tyrese getting killed, and like even man, I can't remember what's the name. What's Daryl's brother's name?
Oh,
but like Andrea's death was powerful. Merle. So
Myrtle,
and Merle getting killed wasn't a big deal, but like Daryl having to confront him as a walker was a big deal. Like all these things were big deals, and I feel like Glenn's death just dropped me into this hole of despair. But then when he wasn't dead, I was just like, I felt like that emotional journey was worthless. Right?
And also the fact that, I don't know, the way that people kill characters has an effect too, kind of like the way they killed one was just like so quick and like dark matter, and the way they killed Glenn was just like way too drawn out, and they made it seem like he was dead. But with dark matter, you saw those bullets go in there.
Right. And you feel like the other difference is because, and I get it. It's The Walking Dead is a specific show painting a specific scenario, right? So it's inherently going to come off differently than a lot of other shows. But with dark matter, you feel like
you're a little bit more attached to characters too. I feel like because sorry, I was going to say, like, with Walking Dead, like, you kind of expect people to die, but in dark matter, you don't expect it to come.
Right.
You actually think,
In dark matter, every character has opportunity and hope. Like, when a character gets killed there, you realize and feel that there's a future and an opportunity for that character to find their path, right?
Right.
Whereas in The Walking Dead, and I get it, it's why it's The Walking Dead, right? It's just all despair, and basically when a character gets killed off, you're like, oh, well, at least they don't have to deal with flipping a coin every day, right, as to whether they're going to live or die. So I get it. Again, I still like the show. I'm looking very forward to the opening of season 7 and seeing who it is that Negan beat to death with the bat. But I can completely understand. I can understand more so now than ever how people have grown weary of it. There were people who didn't like it as soon as it stopped being about the walkers, and I didn't offboard myself at that point. I was like that. That to me was interesting because, again, it's a societal experimental TV show, right? It's exploring, this reality that in the apocalypse, it's not the zombies you have to worry about, right? It's how shitty of a race humanity is, right? So I've appreciated that, but now they've also done that for 3 or 4 seasons, right? So I
We
get
get it. We get it after the governor. People are dicks.
Yeah, yes, that's my only concern. Again, having seen the trailer for season 7, I'm excited that they're gonna have a lot more personalities in it. But yeah, as we head into the Negan thing, I'm like, so how is this going to be different than the governor? Is it just going to be bigger and more people? Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. But Dark Matter, definitely a big thumbs up. So keep it up.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I think the one thing that I feel bad about is I hate that this isn't a regular season show. Like I would love to see a season of 22 episodes of Dark Matter.
I know. I kind of hate it where like it kind of goes by and then you have to wait like a whole nother year for another season. And you're like, no,
Right.
I want 2 seasons, with a lot more
Right.
episodes in a year.
Right. Yeah. And generally, I prefer and favor like the British television style seasons. Like I definitely feel like sometimes American television is too much trying to do those 22 episodes, that the Brits have done something right where there's this notion of like 10 episode and 13 episode seasons. It allows you to keep the story a lot tighter. But I'm just enjoying Dark Matter so much that I would like to see at least one season that's full blown, with 22 episodes.
I mean, as much as I'd hate to see, I'm sure more people don't want to see more episodes like 3. I still would love to see more episodes, even if they're at the quality of episode 3. Just going on missions, and all of that stuff that people miss, seeing the space pirates, kind of in a sense do their thing, I think they could go so deep into every little memory that's hidden away,
Right. I mean, yeah. What I'd like to, if they did 22 episodes, what I'd like to see, because I think they're not getting the opportunity to do it now because it's too tight and too short. Because when you think about it, as complex as the story is, the world is still very small.
Yeah.
Right. We know about the Galactic Authority, 3 corporations, and everything else is just a random scattering of humanity throughout the galaxy. Right.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see more organizations, more factions, more complexity, and more world building, kind of along the lines of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. All right, man. Well, it's late.
and work is early. So. Yeah.
So good episode. Again, things are uncertain about what we're going to do next with this podcast. Again, unfortunately, because of my move, I can't say if we'll be able to do an episode right after episode 6 airs, or the week after episode 6 airs, or whether or not the next thing will be like a consolidated show where we kind of talk about 2 episodes or 3. So just stay tuned and keep your ear out. So Dave, thanks so much for joining in. If people want to catch up with you on social media, where can they find you?
Comic Book Guy 90 on Twitter.
Yeah, and you are officially now the voice behind the Geeks Worldwide Capes Crew Twitter account, right?
I am the social media manager for that. Cool. So we have some pretty, I won't say too much, but we got some pretty big names that we're going to be having on pretty soon. Different comic book series.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good deal. All right, and if you want to catch up with me, as always, you can catch me on Agasicles Stamas, or at Agasicles Stamas, one word, 2 S's in the middle, on Twitter. So thanks so much for everybody for joining in. That is a wrap. We are out of here.